wax canvas is. So wax canvas is canvas fabric, and then we can actually start at the very beginning and say canvas fabric is cotton fabric. So it's woven, non-stretch, generally more durable cotton fabric. And when it gets into the realm of a little bit more durable and a little bit more hardy, it becomes canvas. So canvas is generally used in a lot of outdoor applications for bags and for overalls and for stuff that's like needs to stand up to more wear and tear. Wax canvas is canvas cotton fabric that has wax or oil embedded into the fibers. So we buy our wax canvas from a mill that professionally waxes it. So we don't wax our own canvas, but we can talk about that if folks are interested in it. So our fabric is woven, and there's 2 mills that we get our fabric from. One of them is in Scotland and one of them is in New York. But all the cotton actually comes from India, which is where most cotton in the world comes from. And after they weave it, they stretch it and they pour hot wax on it, and it really embeds into the fibers. So this makes it pretty water resistant. This is actually the original waterproof fabric. So wax canvas is originally from Scottish sailors in the 1800s. So, you know, we think about like a sailor and we think about that like yellow slicker jacket. Well, that was actually originally a natural waxed canvas, and which yellows over time as it's exposed to the elements. So that's where that yellow, that sort of like iconic yellow fisherman jacket look comes from. It comes from natural waxed canvas that's been exposed to the elements and yellowed over time. So one of the best things about waxed canvas is that it shows all the scuffs and the marks. So I'm gonna go ahead and crunch this piece up. Then you can kind of see there, you can really see the story of the fabric as your hands work with the fabric. Now, we absolutely love that, because one of the reasons that we love making in general is that the objects that we make, we interact with them. We really touch every single part of that fabric as we make our bags. So I think that relationship and that story, that making process, being embedded into the fibers and the look of the bag is really special. And that's something that you can only really get with waxed canvas. Now, if you don't like the wrinkles, then if you just leave your bag in the sun, all that wax will melt and it'll look new again, right? Because it's just that when you see the wrinkles, what you're just seeing is that waxy look. But of course, wax heats up and melts, and then it'll sort of even out again. So because of the wax, we don't iron our fabric. We finger press it. And there's a few different ways to finger press it. I'll go over that in a little bit. So some wax canvas fabric will show that marbled look a little bit more, but the darker pieces kind of don't, because the wax, the lightening of the wax doesn't really show up as much. Yeah, so I'm just checking my notes and make sure I'm telling everyone everything. Oh yeah, so let's talk about fabric weights. Now, most of the time when you buy canvas, it'll say 7 to 8 ounce or 9 to 10 ounce. And with wax canvas, it's a little bit trickier, because sometimes the weight of the canvas is sold pre-wax. So they'll tell you the weight of the canvas, not necessarily the weight of the fabric after the wax has been applied. So that adds a little bit of weight and durability to the fabric. So our fabric ranges anywhere from 10 to 12 ounces. So this is our swatch card here. We just actually released this product. So we have some fabrics that are gonna feel a little bit heavier and some that are gonna feel a little bit lighter. And there's a few different reasons for this. One, we have 2 different mills. And the reason we have 2 different mills is because we love colors, and we can't get all of the colors that we love just from one mill. So we source from a couple different mills. The other thing is each mill run has its own character. So every time they go and weave a roll of fabric, it's not going to be exactly the same as every roll. It's pretty close though, but then they go in and they process it again by embedding wax in the fibers, and that's another layer of processing. So by the time it gets to us, we'll see some subtle differences in there. So the weight that we always advertise is a range, because sometimes it'll feel a little bit lighter and feel a little bit heavier too. So 10 to 12 ounce, and that's generally after the wax has been applied. Okay, so I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into the canvas itself, because I've noticed that there's been a lot of questions about canvas in general. Now, sometimes you can get what's called a single fill canvas, where the weave is a lot looser. And sometimes you can get what's called a double fill canvas, where it's a lot tighter of a weave and there's just a lot more cotton in each of the threads. You're going to get a stiffer fabric then. So that's just something to look out for. The other thing that I see a lot of confusion on is canvas is sold in two different ways. It's sold as a number, like number duck, like number 12 or number 8. And it's sold as an ounce, which is the weight that we're talking about. So we are more in the realm of ounces in weight, and the number ducks actually have a different correlation of ounces in weights. They tend to be a lot heavier. So people will mix up the number 12 duck with a 12 ounce, and a number 12 duck is way heavier than a 12 ounce wax canvas or canvas in general. All right, so are there any questions about these basic characteristics about canvas and wax canvas?
There is a question in the chat from Sue, who would like to know if the wax or oil will bleed onto items in the bag when exposed to hot weather.
So it depends on where the wax was made, where the wax canvas was made. And I've noticed that some wax canvases, depending on the color and the mill, will have little oil on them. And the only time I've seen that is when I've lined my bags with like a medium weight cotton, and I'll start to see some of the oil on that cotton. Weird. Okay. So I've seen that, but generally I don't see a lot of, I'm trying to think of in my years of using my wax canvas bags, I don't tend to feel like there's oil spots on my stuff when I pull it out of my bag or in my pockets. I do feel my hands a lot more oiled and like lotiony after I make bags or handle the wax canvas for a little while, you know, because there is wax and oil on it like lotion. But generally I'm not having to protect my stuff. But if folks that are joining the call want to chat and answer that from their own experience, or Ellen, if you have any experience with it, but I generally don't feel like I get that off gassing of the wax.
Yeah, I've been using my wax canvas bags for a long time now, and even brought them to the beach and stuff like that. And you can feel it when it gets hot, maybe feel a little bit tacky to the touch, but it isn't like wax is seeping out of it. It feels a little bit sticky, but I've never experienced it actually like transferring onto something else.
Yeah, me neither. And if you're super concerned about that, then you can go ahead and line your bag or your pocket.
Yeah. Okay, a few more questions here. Okay, Dell says, I have a couple of bags I've used as pocketbooks and I've never had issues. Yeah, I think in general, it's not something to be too concerned about. Anne is asking, is the oil a problem for sewing machines?
So let's talk about that for a second, and we can go into how we clean our machines too. There's of course all types of machines, and some of them are more finicky than others. We usually sew on mechanical machines, heavy duty Singers or Janome HD 3000s or 1000s. So we really sew on machines that don't have a lot of computerized parts and are generally pretty straightforward. Those tend to be our favorite bag making machines. So those are the most that I'm familiar with. And since I run a sewing school and we would have to clean our machines about once a month, but they have heavy use with all of the students, and they have a lot of use from students that are not used to sewing or not used to sewing wax canvas. So I haven't found an issue with that in the machine, but the feed dogs do get gunked up. And generally, of course, the needle will get gunked up, but if you're following best practices for sewing, you're probably changing your needle really often anyways, because that's one of the best things you can do for your machine. That's my public service announcement there about machine maintenance. But we can go ahead and I can show you how we like to clean our machines. I have a machine right here. Would folks like to see that?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I can also say that we have a blog post that does step by step exactly what Ellie's going to show you here with some really great photographs. So I will drop that in the chat if you'd like to check out that as well.
So I don't have the best lighting here, and I know that the camera angle's cutting my head off, so sorry about that. But I'm gonna pop back up and just try and just give you a little bit of a demo here. But like Ellen said, we took some photos that are gonna show this a little bit more than maybe what you can see with the shadows here. But let's just go over it real quick because it's pretty easy. Okay, so I have a toothbrush because I basically brush the teeth of my feed dogs. And then I also have a rag here. And I also have some alcohol, rubbing alcohol. And then I have to take the faceplate off too. So the first thing I'm gonna do is actually take the needle out. And this needle is not that old, but I'm gonna grab a pin here because I also like, you can use an old seam ripper or an old pin too to help you get some of the gunk out. And then I'm just gonna take the faceplate off. Right, so most sewing machines that you buy will come with a little screwdriver that lets you, that's for taking the faceplate off and taking different parts of your machines off in case you need to replace them, or if you need to take the low shank off too for whatever reason, if you're changing your presser foot. Okay, and then I'm going to take the presser foot off. So basically you just want to get access to the feed dogs. And then I'm just going to pour a little bit of alcohol on my toothbrush here and just give a little brush. It's fairly straightforward. Now, some people have told me that their machines will gunk up pretty quickly. Like, I don't find that to be true as much. Oh my gosh, this is so satisfying. Let me just say, it's like, really feels good to clean these. But you want to clean it mainly because your feed dog is supposed to grip your fabric and pull it through and have your machine get a nice even feed. And if you have a bunch of wax in your feed dogs, then you're not going to actually, they're not going to work very well. They're not going to pull your fabric through, and you're going to feel like it's harder to sew. So if you wanted, you could go and take the low shank off of this too, if you just needed a little more space. But that's basically it. And then I would just put everything back together. So it doesn't take that long. I mean, a little bit of machine maintenance is great to just get in the habit of doing.
Oh, we had a question about needles and what kind of needle is best to use with wax canvas.
Yeah, so needles, we usually use a denim needle. So our favorite needles are chrome, Schmetz Chrome Denim 100 needles for the 10 to 12 ounce wax canvas. It's nice and sturdy, but it doesn't make too big of a hole. Now, if you're sewing the Slabtown backpack, you're gonna go over to a top stitch needle, size 100, and that way you can run the top stitch thread or the two all-purpose threads through the needle there. But yeah, we sell both of those on our site. We tend to try to carry all of the specialty bag making stuff that I found over the years works the best for the fabric that we sell. So you can always head over to our supply shop for any of that stuff.
A couple other questions. John was wondering about whether or not you need to reproof or re-wax your bag eventually.
Yeah, so there's definitely, you want to keep wax on the bag over the years. And Otter Wax is a local Portland company that sells bars of wax for rewaxing your bags. The same way you would re-wax like a wax canvas jacket. It just like makes it new again and makes it fresh again, and it also makes it last longer.
Yeah, I can drop that link into the chat, and Otterwax actually has some really great tutorials, like videos on their website about how to re-wax jackets and bags and all kinds of stuff.
Any more questions?
What kind of thread?
So believe it or not, I love all-purpose thread because it's actually really, really strong. So if you want a thicker thread, you can run a double thread through the top needle. And we actually have a free video on our YouTube channel about how I do that.
We have a question from Amanda who's saying, I have the Fremont pattern and the wax canvas. Any chance you'll be able to send hardware to the UK? So I guess this is just a question about shipping and our international shipping right now.
Yeah, so we have, oh, we're getting some feedback now. That's weird. During COVID, there has been a lot of delays and really just people haven't been getting their packages internationally. So we stopped doing international shipping, which totally sucks. Well, actually, we do international shipping, but you have to email us because we have to kind of tell you the deal. We've been doing a lot of research, trying to figure out how to ship internationally in a way that is a capacity for Klum House, because we're in a skeleton crew right now in a small studio, and it's a lot harder to work. It's hard to get all the packages out and do all of the research at the same time. But we have been shipping internationally, and we do, it's just more that you have to email info@klumhouse.com and talk with our shipper, Anna, about just how long it might take and the customs and all of that. And then we can definitely get that out to you though.
Lisa is asking, is there any kit in particular that you would recommend for a beginner bag maker? I'm wanting to dive in.
Yeah, so I recommend the Portsmith Tote. If you've never sewn before, I recommend taking our free Sewing 101 online class and then actually using the online class for the Portsmith Tote with a kit, and that's going to be the most supportive way to make the bag. I also recommend the Woodland Dopp Kit, so I can grab those examples for you in a second. And we also have an online course that is the Sew Like a Boss bundle, and it's the Sewing 101 class, the Portsmith Tote class, and the Woodland Dopp Kit all bundled together for less of a price than if you bought them separately. And that bag is just like such a nice quick sew, and it really gets you used to working with wax canvas. So I'll go ahead and grab it real quick. This is sort of like the quintessential classic wax canvas tote. So there's really only 6 stitches on this bag, but you get used to working with wax canvas. like I talked about, you don't iron wax canvas, so I'll show you how you press it, and that demo's in the class too. But you also get introduced to rivets and washers and working with leather, and you also learn the zigzag stitch and ways to bind the edges. And my favorite part about this bag is you learn how to do an envelope fold base, so that you don't even have to do a box corner stitch to get this dimension in the bag. So this is a really, I've seen people literally whip this bag up in classes that have never even seen a sewing machine. People are like really, you know, of course it's in a class, so it's always nice to see me do it, and then you can be like, okay, I'm just gonna copy that. So that's why online classes are great if you're new, and you pick up all these tips too, even if you have been sewing for a while. So I could show how we press wax canvas, then we could do a little bit more questions.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I want to spotlight my overhead video. Okay, so let me give you a few things that we always do in our patterns. Say I want to produce a hem right here. What I'll usually do is I'll draw a fold 2 line. So I want to do a 1/2 inch hem, so I'm going to draw a fold 2 line at 1 inch. Which, by the way, if I'm pressing a hem to the wrong side, wax canvas doesn't have a right and wrong side. So I'm going to choose a side and say this is the wrong side, and then that'll just be the wrong side for the project. Then I'm going to take the edge of my fabric and it'll just meet my fold 2 line, and then I just finger press the waxed canvas. Now, one of my favorite tools is a steel fabric roller, and it gives you a crisper edge when you press. So I really love that you don't have to go to the iron and iron when you're working with wax canvas. You can just do this, so you get this nice crisp edge here. And then we just usually use like craft clips or something to hold our hem down. Yeah, so that's how we work with wax canvas. And if you were doing a double turn hem, you could just pull it down, use your roller again. So you can really see those crease marks, and that actually helps you work with it. So that's one of the reasons why it's such a great beginner fabric too. All right.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about why we use craft clips instead of pins with wax canvas.
Yeah, so we use pins also, but we love to use craft clips, and primarily because craft clip pins are hard to push through heavyweight fabric. So if you're in, say, a few different layers, sometimes like you would be on the side seams of the Portsmith Tote, it's really hard sometimes to get this pin into all these layers of fabric. So we just throw some craft clips on, and it's just a lot simpler to hold thicker layers of fabric. So that's why we use craft clips. We also have jumbo craft clips in case you need to just reach a little farther in, or you just need to clip together a thicker amount of fabric.
Can this steel fabric roller be used on other fabrics besides wax canvas?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if you're a quilter, this could save you so much time, because you could just, it's the weight of the steel and the fact that there's a radius edge here. So as you roll it, the edge isn't going to leave a mark, and it's not going to leave a crease either. So you get this really nice weight here, so you don't have to like wrench on it when you're rolling it.
We had a question from Gigi about when you make mistakes while stitching wax canvas, does it leave holes in it? Like, is it more noticeable when you make a mistake?
So it is more noticeable when you make a mistake. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll take if I'm concerned about the holes showing, I'll take a hair dryer and I'll run the hair dryer over that area, and then those holes or the visibility of the holes decreases a lot, because the reason you see the holes a lot more is because of the wax. I'm gonna go ahead and spotlight my other, there we go.
Let's see what's going on in the chat here. Deba says, I sewed the Portsmith Tote with a natural canvas lining, and it was difficult to sew the lining to the outside hem. The natural canvas does not stretch, and using it when doing a top stitch was not smooth. I think a more flexible lining would work better. Okay, so this was the Portsmith Tote with our lining expansion using a natural canvas lining, and she was having trouble sewing them.
Yeah, so setting your, that is a more challenging stitch, especially because the weights of the fabric are a little bit different, and you get a little more stretch on the wax canvas because it's a thinner fabric than you do on the canvas. So I'll generally adjust my side seams, or I'll definitely pin or clip it up as a mock-up, right? Because folks that are familiar with this project will know what I mean, but you get a chance to actually clip and pin the perimeter of the top hem before you go in and sew it. So if you're feeling like there's going to be too much ease that you have to do, you can actually go back into the side seams of your lining, and you can adjust the seam allowance of those side seams so that the lining perimeter matches the perimeter of the exterior fabric a little more closely, and then you don't have to ease as much. But it's a fun project. It's nice to have some lining in the canvas, in the tote, and it gives it a little bit extra structure and body. I'm going to talk a little bit about the colors and the variations on the wax canvas, and then we can do more questions.
Cool.
All right, so as you can see behind me, there is a slab town. Let me go ahead and take this down. With a pocket, and the pocket is made out of natural wax canvas. So as you all can see, it is slightly transparent. And we recently put that on the product listing. So this is just a postcard that is in this pocket, and you can see through it. Yeah, so that's just something to note. You'll get that transparency also on the marigold, so any light colored wax canvas, and that's because of the oil mostly. So the oil, like think about when you get oil on a brown paper bag. It darkens a little bit, which is one thing I want to tell you all about. And then it also makes it slightly transparent. And so that's what's happening there. So wax canvas, when you first get it from us, is actually going to be a lot darker than after you start working with the bag and wearing it and stuff. And that lightens over time. And you see that a lot with the moss fabric. So sometimes when you unroll your wax canvas kits, you'll see moss, black or dark brown. All of these, they look really similar at first. They look really dark, but that's just the wax being really new on the fabric. And as the bag wears in, the green hues really come through and the brown hues really come through on the dark brown. It only takes like a week or so before you start to see those lighten up as the wax wears in and wears off the bag. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the nuances of wax canvas because it is such a novel fabric for most people. Any questions?
Oops, I was talking, but I was muted. Should we show off our newest wax canvas colors that are now available by the yard? We could take a look at field tan and spring green, maybe?
Yeah. So this is field tan. And actually, this is field tan next to brush brown, just so you can see the difference there. So field tan is actually one of the original wax canvas colors that I used to manufacture with. I used to run a custom bag company called Reload Bags, and we made a line of wax canvas messenger bags a while back, and this was one of our main colors. So I was really happy to bring it over to Klum House finally. Yeah, it's a really great sort of classic brown. Like when you think about a classic wax canvas duster jacket, this is the color that comes to mind for me. We also just released our dark brown, which is such a lovely color. You know, it's a shame that the color of the dark brown, I feel like, doesn't fully communicate through photos and online. Like it's this subtle, nice, rich dark brown that I think is so classic, like kind of like classic black. So if you're like me, you wear a lot of black. So it's nice to kind of mix up all your black things with a dark brown because it's still really classic and timeless. So that goes really, really well with the field tan. We also just released our moss fabric in conjunction with our spring green fabric. So this has been like the star of the show colorway for our recent Slabtown Maker Kit launch. So this spring green is just so lovely, and it's really nice to add a new like lighter color to our whole rainbow of colors now. So at this point now, all of the colors of wax canvas that Klum House manufactures with are now available for yardage on our site. So this is the first week that that's been true. And we're having a wax canvas sale this week just to honor that and to say, hey, you guys can buy all of our wax canvas colors now. And we also just put this swatch card for sale on our site too. So it's only $12 and you could just get every single swatch. And that way, every time you're buying fabric from us or kits from us, you can use these to design your next bag or your next project.
Let's see. Looks like Allison joined us a little bit late and she said, can you talk about cleaning? Oh, cleaning wax canvas. We went over cleaning the sewing machine, but cleaning a wax canvas bag itself, it looks like, is her question.
Great question. Thanks for asking that. We don't wash our bags, our wax canvas bags, in the washing machine. And one of the main reasons for that is there's generally leather on the bag too. So the best way to clean your wax canvas is actually to spot clean it with a little bit of soap and water and just rubbing it. So often, because it's wax canvas and because the weave is so tight, the dirt doesn't really penetrate into the body of the fabric. It stays superficial. So sometimes what you can do is just brush the fabric, and that really helps to clean it too. But if you do need to just spot clean it with some soap and water, it cleans really, really easily because that wax on it actually protects the fabric from getting really dirty. Of course, over time, it will get more dirty as the wax gets dirty, but you can spot clean it and you can hose it down even too, but don't throw it in the washer. And after, if you do a really thorough cleaning of it, you're gonna wanna re-wax it. And we have information on cleaning it in our blog posts too.
Yeah, I've been sharing a bunch of links in the chat, and I think what I'll do is after our live chat today, I will send out an email to all of you with just sort of a roundup of all of the blog posts and the links that we've talked about, so you don't have to worry about like scrambling to write them down and keep track of them right now.
Okay, so we have 15 or so more minutes. Let me know any of your wax canvas or fabric questions, or if you have any general questions about Klum House.
Maddie would like to know if you can make straps out of wax canvas.
Yes, absolutely. My favorite way to make a strap out of wax canvas is to cut a 3-inch wide strip and then fold it in half. Well, this is not 3 inches wide, so sorry. And do 2 single turn hems on each edge and just run a stitch along each edge too. So if you do that and you want to strengthen it, you could always throw a piece of webbing or something on the inside as you envelop that and fold that. But you're just going to want to fold the fabric a few times.
Looks like we have a couple different questions here about using wax canvas for projects other than bag making, such as a brimmed gardening hat and a jacket. So I guess just looking for general suggestions for using wax canvas for non-bag projects in terms of weights, seam finishing, and things like that?
Okay, so some of the main stuff you're going to want to know about wax canvas is that it's actually really easy to work with. So think about all the different fabrics that you've sewn with and what makes a fabric hard to sew. If it has a lot of movement generally, right? Because one of the skills of sewing is developing the ability to handle and control the fabric so the stitch goes where you want it to. Well, wax canvas, because of the wax, is actually really sticky. So when you do a right sides together stitch or you do 2 layers, they don't want to slip around on each other. They want to stay put, which gives you an extra helping hand. The other thing that is really nice about wax canvas that makes it pretty easy to sew is that if you do have to ease something, like set a sleeve in, for instance, then and you're not getting that ease as well as you want to, if you stretch wax canvas just a little bit, then it actually stays in its new length because of the wax. So it has this, it's able to move and become malleable in a way that actually helps you sew versus in a way that just drives you crazy when you're at the machine, like when you're trying to sew like silk or something like that. So those are 2 things about wax canvas that make it really easy to sew. It's a really great beginner heavy duty fabric. It's very forgiving. The other thing that's amazing is it doesn't fray very easily because of the wax. So anyone that's ever worked with canvas knows that canvas frays like crazy because you have such thick strands, yarns in the weave that as it frays, it's like a big fray. Like our lining does that. But wax canvas doesn't do that because the wax actually helps the fabric stick together. Now it still frays, but the fray is so much more minimal too. So that's also really helpful so that your pieces, as you work them through the steps, they stay true to their size a little bit more, unless you need to give it a little bit of a tug and reshape it. So it's got this molding effect, which is really nice. So let me bring it back to the question. Because of all of those things, it's really fun to make heavier duty garments out of wax canvas. And like I said, one of the original reasons for wax canvas was for rain slickers. So it makes an amazing jacket and it would make a great gardening hat. I would recommend lining it or at least having like a headband thing in there, and probably even putting some eyelets for breathability on the top or the back. I've seen that on gardening hats in general too. And a lot of baseball caps will have that.
Anne would like to know if we recommend zigzagging the edges to finish them.
So there's a lot of different ways to finish your edges in general with bag making, and zigzagging is a really nice, easy way to do it, especially if you don't have a serger. Now, I'm not sure if that question is about zigzagging an edge that's never going to show or zigzagging an edge that does show, like for instance, in the Portsmith Tote. I don't finish my edges of wax canvas that don't show because they don't get a lot of wear and tear, and it's a thick fabric. So there's not this risk of unless you're doing a really small seam allowance. Generally, we don't do a seam allowance less than 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch when we're doing a right sides together stitch. But if you are, then you would want to finish that edge for some durability. But if I'm just doing a right sides together stitch, I'll leave that raw edge in there because it's thick, durable fabric, and we're usually sewing on a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So yeah, so not sure which direction you wanted to go with that question, but there's both answers there.
Yeah, and then Gail jumped in and said, do you use French seams? And we do on the Woodland Tote, right?
Yeah, so we do use French seams on the Woodland Tote, and it's a really wonderful seam. It's actually one of my favorite. However, it starts to get really thick if you run any perpendicular stitch across the French seam. So one of the main things you're gonna wanna look out for when sewing with waxed canvas is that it is a heavy duty fabric. So if you go, and I always suggest testing your machine, setting it up, making sure you can get through all the layers. But as you read through your pattern before you start making stuff, because as you know, we all do that, right? So read through your whole pattern and really look at where are the junction points of the seams, what's the thickest amount of fabric I'm going to go through when I sew this project. Now, if you get up to 6, 8, 10 layers of fabric, even if it's 4.5 inch or 1 inch of your stitch, as you know, if your machine can't make it through that 1/2 inch of thick fabric, then you're going to have a gap in your seam and you're going to have a weak point in your project. So one of the main things to look out for is just making sure that your machine can really get through these layers. So there's a lot of heavy duty sewing techniques that can help you get there. And we have a ton of free videos on our YouTube channel about that. But we do like the Denim 100 needles, and that really does help having a sharp needle. Yeah.
Celeste is wondering if we have a minimum yardage when purchasing wax canvas from us.
Yeah, it's just 1/2 yard. They're sold in 1/2 yard increments. So if you want 1 yard, you would just choose a quantity of 2. And it explains that on the fabric listing, product listing. And if for some reason there's anything ever that's confusing, just go ahead and email us before you purchase and we'll help you figure everything out.
Ellie, we've gotten a few questions today about Pendleton, and I think folks are wondering about Pendleton wool and whether we sell that separately from our limited edition kits. And I explained that generally we just sell Pendleton wool in our limited edition kits. However, we do have a Pendleton wax canvas, which is a really cool find. So maybe we could show that and talk about that fabric a little bit.
Yeah, let me grab it. But if you want, you can tell people about just how the Pendleton wool worked with our limited edition, that we really just got it in collaboration with Pendleton.
Yeah. So last holiday season, some of you may remember that we did a big launch of limited edition maker kits with Pendleton wool. And so we got a bunch of really beautiful colorways and we pre-cut them all. And they came in the kits themselves. But if you are looking to just buy Pendleton wool, I believe you can buy yardage of it directly from the Pendleton mill. And I've also seen in the chat, folks were talking about how you can sometimes get some offcuts of it from Etsy sellers as well. So if you're looking to source your own Pendleton wool, there are options for that out there.
This is Pendleton waxed canvas, and I know that you've never seen that before, and I had never seen it before until earlier this year, actually. So Pendleton's a factory and a mill. They manufacture bags and clothing, and then they also mill fabric. So they had a special limited edition product where they milled some Pendleton waxed canvas. And they had some leftover fabric from that run, and I was able to purchase it from them. And there's really not much of that fabric around. They're never going to make it again. They made it specialty for that. And but luckily it works really, really well on a slab town. And we are out here in Oregon, so which is also where Pendleton is. So we're able to make that connection with the mill and get our hands on some Pendleton wax canvas, which was super exciting for the Slab Town launch.
Yeah, so that one is not available in yardage, but it is available in our Slab Town full maker kits. That Pendleton is an option. Yeah, we really love the idea of patterned wax canvas in general, and it's very uncommon. It's generally just a solid color fabric, so it was cool to happen upon that Pendleton.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason why folks will wax their own fabric, is so that they can get some patterned fabric and get that wax finish on it. There's a lot of tutorials online about waxing your own fabric. We don't personally do it because it is a little more labor intensive than I have time for right now, but I've always been curious about it, and it's been cool to see what people have come up with.
Yeah, I think the Otter Wax website is a really good resource for that. They have all kinds of products like wax bars and tutorials. So if you're interested in waxing your own canvas, you should check out Otter Wax for sure.
Well, we have a few more minutes. Are there any other burning questions?
I'm not seeing anything new in the chat right now. Let me see if I missed anything here.
So all in all, of course, my mission is for everyone to be a bag maker. And I think waxed canvas is a really good way to get there. One of my favorite things about bags in general is structure. So we really like our bags to be like three-dimensional objects. We really like them to stand up on their own, and we really like them to sort of be nice vessels for our lifestyle. So waxed canvas really gives us this ability to have a structured bag without having it to be really, really thick fabric that your machine just won't go through. So I think that's one of the great ways. And also any other project you can think of where you really want that structure. Like I've seen folks, and I've made them myself, make planter holders out of wax canvas, or I've made a ton of tool rolls out of it, and bike panniers, and so many things that need like a durable fabric that can still be sewn on your home sewing machine, because a lot of durable fabrics can't be. They max out your machine really quickly, or your machine feed dogs can't actually grip the fabric and pull it through. But you don't get those limitations with waxed canvas. So you can really have pretty much any sewing machine, honestly, except for maybe the Hello Kitty ones that, yeah, you can have pretty much every sewing machine and sew wax canvas as a heavy duty fabric. So I really like that accessibility of it.
Cool. We're getting a few last minute questions in here. We have a couple people curious about your suggestions for the best lining fabrics for bags to use with wax canvas exteriors.
So one of the things I like to do with my lining fabrics, like I said, I really like structure in the bags. I think it makes them just look like more impressive objects. So I tend to go thick with my lining fabric, which is why our maker kits are sold with 10.10 ounce army duct canvas, because it adds that extra layer of structure. So my favorite lining fabric is actually a canvas fabric that's about the same weight. So you could always do a double layer of wax canvas. Now, if you want to add a pop or a patterned fabric, which I know wax canvas doesn't come with patterns a lot of times, then I would do a fusible interfacing, like a decor bond or some thicker, medium thicker fusible interfacing to the wrong side of your printed cotton fabric. Like Japanese cotton, which is like a little bit thicker, is great to use too, and then use that as lining. But I've also seen people use a thinner lining, like a ripstop or something, depending on what your applications are. So you can really play around with it. Like I said, it's a really versatile fabric. You'll be surprised what actually works for it. But as you know, anytime you're designing any project that you make, you have to think about what are the end use goals. If you want like a lighter bag, say you're making something for hiking or something for camping, you might want to lean towards something lightweight like a ripstop. Or if you're trying to make a really cute bag for someone that you know that really like loves like a crazy print, but they don't want to have that print on their bag outside as an everyday bag, then you can hide that printed fabric surprise on the inside of the bag.
Okay, two last quick questions here. What model of Singer heavy duty machine do you use?
Okay, so Singer heavy duty comes in a few different models, 4423, 4412, but the numbers after the 44 are just the amounts of stitches that that machine has. So I just use the medium amount one, which is the 4423, but I'm sure I also have the 4412, or I can't remember, that there's like one with way more stitches and one with less. But I really like this middle one because it has a triple straight stitch, which can mimic a heavy duty thread just with an all-purpose thread by doing a triple straight stitch. And it also has a triple zigzag stitch, which I use sometimes too if I want a really strong zigzag. Like I remember, I think me and Ellen were making a collar for her dog, and we might have used the triple straight stitch on that one too. But when you get into a lot more stitches in a machine, they're just not ones that I use in bag making that much. Like I don't use a lot of decorative stitches, and we're not sewing stretch fabrics, and we don't need that versatility in those stitches. But you pay for more stitches generally with machines, or higher quality, which it seems like most sewing machine companies are trying to sell you a machine with like a lot of doodads and gadgets. So you just, and then that's where the price goes up. So you got to think about, well, I'm actually going to use that, or am I just sewing really straightforward, more rugged stuff like what I sew? And in that case, all you really need is a straight stitch and a zigzag.
Okay, last question from Jean. Jean just wants to see a Woodland Dopp Kit. Do you have a sample?
Yeah, you guys can look at the Pendleton one. I grab one. So this is a Dopp kit. I know you're gonna think it looks way harder to make than it does, but maybe some folks that have joined us today could chat about their experience making it, but it's pretty straightforward. It's a very beginner project. I've taught this project to folks in class that have also never touched a sewing machine. One of the cool things about this is none of the stitches show on the outside of the Dopp kit. And when you're sewing your zipper, none of the stitches show for the zipper either. So there's a lot of forgiveness there. And there's actually not a lot of stitches here too, but it's a really great project to get used to sewing zippers. It's a great first zipper project. And if you want to work your way up to sewing like a Slab Town or a Maywood bag, this is also a great place to start, because since I designed all of these patterns, the techniques in all of them are similar. They tend to be the same, and they build on each other, right? So the harder a project is, a lot of times has to do with the complexity. How many steps do you have to sew until the project is complete? Another thing that makes a project really hard is how big are the pieces? Are you wrangling a lot of fabric? As a beginner stitcher, are you just getting used to handling fabric and controlling it, learning how to make the machine go where you want it to go? Then you want to start with smaller projects. And in that case, the Dopp kit is perfect for that.
Okay, there's one last comment in the chat that I just want to bring up, because Venus says that she would love a frequent buyer program. And so I just want to drop a little bit of a hint that something along those lines is something that we've had sort of cooking in our heads for a while now. We're thinking about the possibility of what it would look like to let people buy supplies like wax canvas and maybe other raw goods supplies in bulk from us. So we hear you, and we know that a lot of folks are interested in shopping that way so that they can really stock their studios to do a lot of bag making. And I would just say, stay tuned, because we're working on something along those lines.
Yeah, like Ellen said, we know that it's hard to find really high quality bag making materials. I know that because I've done so much research over the years, and I also used to manufacture bags. So like I have connections with my manufacturers from mills back when those mills and those factories were still in the US even. So I've been making bags since the late 90s. and I know how hard it is to find stuff. So our goal with Klum House, like Ellen says, is we've really been talking about how can we make these more accessible to people that are really making bags, that are handcrafting these bags, that are doing small batch manufacturing. How can we make this more affordable? So we're really actively working on that right now.
Okay, so we're just over 1 o'clock now. Thank you everyone so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us and thanks for your support. And we have a wax canvas sale right now on all of our wax canvas colors until Sunday night. No discount code needed. They're just, all the sale prices are just on. So don't worry about it when you add it to cart. You don't have to remember the code or anything. Just add it to cart and it's already on sale.
Yeah, and just a reminder for some of you who tuned in late that we are recording this. And so I'm going to get the recording up on our blog, hopefully tomorrow, but definitely by the end of this week. So you can find it there to rewatch it. And I'll also send out an email, a follow-up to all of you who RSVP'd with some of the links that we talked about today.
Yay. Thanks, Ellen. Thank you, everyone. And stay tuned for our next live talk, which will be very soon, because I'm really into this idea of connecting with everyone and sharing this knowledge that really just, I can't write all of this on the website. And it's nice to just connect and see you all as I look through all the different little boxes of everyone. And I'm so excited that people are so interested in making bags, and email us or contact us if you have any questions. All right, have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.